Welcome to part 2 of the Shadowspear special. As mentioned in part 1, I felt it was strange that the box art aligned these forces to the Ultramarines and Black Legion. It would have been a great opportunity to showcase some of the other legions, as the themes of these new units almost perfectly suits the Raven Guard and Wordbearers. So that is what I'll be aiming to do here. Part 1 was for the Raven Guard. This video, I will be focusing on the Wordbearers. For those who haven't seen one of my thematic list builds before, the goal's quite simple. I aim to create a list based around a theme central to the focused faction, and when doing so, soup is actually off the menu. The idea is to use the tools available to a faction to create a competent and thematic list, not simply go into another book and pull something that is more efficient for the role. Now, with the formalities out of the way, let's take a look at this list for the Sons of Lorgar, a Shadowspear thematic list build for the Wordbearers. The biggest challenge of creating a Chaos Space Marines list is actually implementing Chaos Space Marines. Similar to their loyalist equivalent, the Tactical Marines, they are simply less suited to the job required of troops, which can be better fulfilled by different unit choices. As far as the big four God-aligned legions go, they have specialized Marines, which don't fall to the same issue. But I think the solution I arrived upon goes a long way towards making this list feel like a Wordbearer's army, and makes for an excellent opportunity for hobbyists as well. The list is comprised of 2 battalions, incorporating a specialized attachment, granting a total of 10 command points. With regards to the objective theme of the list, we are focusing on possession, cultists, and an alliance to the undivided pantheon of the Chaos Gods. Normally, I would go detachment by detachment, but I think to best explain and showcase the theme of this list, it demands that I take a broader look at the breakdown. We can start with the 4 leaders of the army, who are divided across the 2 battalions. Leading the 1st battalion, we have a Dark Apostle marked Khorne, and a Master of Possession marked Tzeentch. In the other battalion, we have a Chaos Lord with Jump Pact marked to Slaanesh, accompanied by a Sorcerer with Jump Pact marked Nurgle. 4 HQs leading 2 battalions, each marked to a single Chaos God. I am digging the foundation here, but we'll have to come back to the details of our devout leaders. Filling out all 6 of our required troop choices are 3 squads of 10 cultists and 3 squads of 5 Chaos Space Marines. The Chaos Marines, while a little underwhelming, can be surprisingly effective when in cover holding objectives, leveraging bolter discipline. The cultists are simply zealous followers, an expendable resource, a fitting role since they do help provide command points for a reduced cost. The Wordbearers are one of the few legions which I feel can field cultists in this volume and still feel thematically appropriate. Use them to screen out enemy deep strike and contest objectives, as these loyal fanatics will gladly give their lives for the ruinous powers. All of these troops choices can be marked to whatever you like, offering fun hobbing opportunities for kit bashing and varying iconography as desired. With the 2 battalions now valid, the list affords 13 command points to start. And with all the units that comprise our 2nd detachment defined, we may as well flesh out its leaders. The Chaos Lord is armed with a Thunderhammer and Combi Bolter. Because he is our Slaanesh leader, I felt it fitting to give him the Intoxicating Elixir, which is taken as an additional relic, which brings our command points to 12. The Sorcerer is armed with a Force Sword and Combi Bolter. He knows Smite, Miasma of Pestilence, and Death Hex. He can use Miasma of Pestilence to provide a -1 hit modifier on himself, or the other Nurgle-marked units in the army. Death Hex can be used wherever it's needed, to remove invulnerable saves from choice targets. The 1st battalion will be the Specialist Detachment, Demonkin Ritualists, bringing our command point total to 11. It has some good tools which fits nicely with the Wordbearer's fluff. Leading it is the Dark Apostle. Who else would be more appropriate as our Warlord? He will be accompanied by 2 Dark Disciples. The Warlord trait I've opted for is the Voice of Lorgar, which does synergize with their Lackluster Legion trait, making it a little bit better. His Warlord trait also extends the range of the prayer I've given him, which is the Benediction of Darkness, making it a total of 9 inches. The prayer he gets for being marked Khorne will allow him to add 2 to his strength, and since he is our holier-than-thou Warlord, I gave him the Cursed Crozius as the free relic afforded by the list. So in a pinch, he can bring the pain. He doesn't have many attacks, but those 3 swings will be hitting on 2s, and can potentially be Strength 8, AP -2, 3 damage. rerolling all failed wound rolls against Imperium targets. Our last HQ is our Tzeentch Master of Possession. Powers he knows are Smite, Cursed Earth, and Mutated Invigoration. I opted to spend 1 command point to make him a field commander, granting him the Shepherd of the True Faith Warlord trait. It grants the Dark Apostles, Master of Possession, Dark Disciples, Possessed, and Greater Possessed in the detachment the ability to inflict an additional mortal wound for each unmodified wound roll of 6 made in the fight phase within 6 inches of our Master of Possession. Next up, we have a max-size Phalanx of Possessed. They are, in my mind, the ideal infantry unit to represent the heretic Astartes of the Word Bearers. It thematically suits them, as they were the first possessed back in the heresy, and it provides a nice contrast in showing how malign the Word Bearers have become. This giant squad of Nurgle-marked possessed comes up to 400 points, and while not cheap, they will definitely do the business. Let's take a look at what 10 will do to get an idea. Each possessed has D3 attacks at Ballistic Skill 3. Our Master of Possession's power, Mutated Invigoration, will allow you to reroll their number of attacks should you get the undesirable one. So for the sake of this example, let's assume it to be average. So the 10 possessed have 20 attacks at Ballistic Skill 3, hitting at Strength 5. But I should mention, they will be accompanied by a Greater Possessed as well. So that is now 20 attacks at Strength 6. And our Specialist Detachment does offer a 1 CP stratagem to add 1 to their strength and attacks if the unit is within 6 inches of a Master of Possession, bringing our 10 possessed to have a staggering 30 attacks at Strength 7, AP-2, 1 damage, dealing an additional mortal wound on natural wound rolls of 6. As you can see, the combo potential is pretty huge, and there are still more options for them. So, you might be thinking, this dangerous, super scary, and rather expensive unit is probably going to be the enemy's alpha target, and they probably will be. But I actually think we have the tools here to preserve them quite well. To start, our Dark Apostles' Benediction of Darkness will grant them a -1 to hit against ranged attacks at the start of the battle round, which is fantastic, since it's one of the few defensive tools that doesn't require you to have first turn. And if that's the case, you might as well use Prepared Positions, which will grant this unit, and the many others in the list, a cover save bonus while being placed in an aggressive position. If the enemy's turn 1 threat is of the melee or psychic variety, we have more than enough cultists to screen that out. But if you go first, this is where things get a little crazy. As mentioned, we have our Benediction of Darkness from our Warlord, granting the -1 to hit, and then we have our Master of Possession's Cursed Earth ability, which can increase their invulnerable save to 4 up. And if you need an additional layer, we have our Nurgle Sorcerer, who can grant an additional -1 to hit with the Miasma of Pestilence power. This is some serious layering of buffs, allowing you to greatly mitigate extreme volumes of anti-horde firepower, or even the dreaded high-volume, high-AP, multi-damage firepower. One last note on Possessed. The current Possessed kit from GW feels a little too much like a Saturday morning cartoon for my liking. And while the 30k Galvorback and Blade Slaves look fantastic, I can appreciate that it can be a little cost prohibitive. But the release of the new plastic Chaos Space Marines, along with some demon bits of your choice, could result in a solid kit bashed aesthetic. I suppose you could consider this a little hobby tip for some Neo Galvorback. Rounding out the elites are 3 Hellforged Contemptors, 2 of which are geared out with dual Butcher Cannons to get some high volume, high strength firepower, and the last one is geared up with an Ectoplasma Cannon and Chainclaw, because I could not resist the concept of the Mara Gal Dreadnought fighting alongside a horde of possessed. And lastly, we have 3 Obliterators marked Slaanesh. You know the drill here. Turn 2, they come down, you pop Veterans of the Long War and Endless Cacophony. For 3 CP, you get 36 shots, adding 1 to wound rolls. An honorable mention goes out to the Venom Crawler. I do think it's quite feasible to make a summoning-based list, with about a quarter to a third of your points dedicated to summoning. But with regards to the Shadowspear box, and the release of the Demonkin Ritualist detachment, the inclusion of the Obliterators better complements what we have here. And that brings this list build to an end. If I got my points right, the list comes to 2,000 points exactly. It offers a horrifying core of warp-corrupted demon-bound possessed, complemented by a few Mara Gal Contemptor Dreadnoughts, a devout following of cultists, and 4 leader characters, each bound to their respective Chaos God. Which makes sense, because if any legion should be able to leverage all the strengths of the different marks, it would be the Word Bearers. And probably the Black Legion, but that I will save for a different video. That brings this thematic list build to a close. If you are a Word Bearers player and give this list a try, let me know how it goes. And if you have any suggestions for future factions to cover in this series, please leave a comment below. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.